Thokozani, Thokozani Royals, Thokozani family, Ninjani, Thokozani Hotep Royals. Welcome to another long-awaited conversation with Mkhulu Nsingiza, who is the founder of the great empire of Kemet, bakwaNtu Basekemu. Mkhulu needs no introduction here at this stage. If you are new here, then you can go and visit the Great Empire of Kemet on YouTube or right here on TikTok, or stick around and listen in. Ninjani, I see the family has started to gather already. Thank you guys for showing up. I'm a little bit late. I was having a bit of a logistical problem, but we fixed it. So how is everyone doing? We are quarter to our new year. Those who have been fasting, how is the fasting going? If you have not started fasting, it is not too late to start your fast. Please do join us in fasting, even if you're not going to be able to attend with us physically. You know, we are such powerful beings that all it takes is to be of one mind, one heart, or one emotion, intentioning for the same thing, which is the same theme all around the world. This year, our theme is Black unity, and we have put things in action to unite bakwaNtu across the entire globe. One of which, of course, is our zero or central point, which is our Kemet Royal African Calendar. So this Royal African Calendar, you guys have heard all about it. I just want to let you know that on this page, if you go to the link tree in my bio, if you're in the diaspora, you are now able to purchase this calendar book. The calendar itself is already there. We are currently working on where did it go? We are currently working on perfecting a planner for you guys. But I just really wanted to invite you guys to go and look in the GEK diaspora link in my link tree. When you get into my link tree, right, there's one section and there's a section that says links. Click on that and you will see all the links for the Royal Calendar book, right? And it's in English to make it accessible to everyone in the diaspora. And then there is the actual calendar, which you can purchase just as a poster like this. Isn't that beautiful? Or you can purchase it as a calendar book where each principle is represented. It's a work in progress. We're not ready yet. Once it's ready, that link will go live. The planner will also go live. But this is to show you guys that we're serious about this Black unity, and we understand that Black unity can only happen around spirituality and spiritual cultural matters. Politics will never, ever unite us. We know this. Religion will never unite us. We know this, because those things were strategically given to us in order to divide us, in order to weaken us, because the understanding and knowledge that palm-colored creatures have is that when melanated beings unite, it's game over. And so anything that we can do as a family, as the Black nation, to unite is very important. And we have to unite around essential things. The essential thing, first and foremost, is to unite around our spirituality. This calendar is, and this is something none of us knew before we knew that Africans even had a calendar, that we actually had a new year, is that whoever dictates your time really owns you, right? Why? Because timing in spirituality is everything, right? When you do certain rituals, when you pour your libations, the direction in which you face when you do certain things, all those things are essential component of living a spiritual life. And so once somebody gives you a calendar that misaligns you with nature, because we are nature, we are a people of nature. Without nature, we cannot function or exist. So that's that. And now I have the biggest surprise ever. Like, I'm super, super, super excited. We have the first ever, the inaugural African Kemet New Year celebration in the USA. Yes, we do. We do. The celebration is going to be on the 22nd of September because we want to align and time it exactly with what will be going on at home. So it will be on the 22nd of September 2024. It's going to be from 12 p.m., which is 6 p.m. at home, which is when we start officially on the 22nd, till 12 a.m. our time. Right? So we are going to time the rituals here in the United States and time it with what is going on at home because we're creating that spiritual unity that is so powerful. It's going to be on Tibby Island. This is in Georgia. I think it's just outside Atlanta, this little island. So it's going to be by the beach. It's going to be beautiful. All the elements of that we include back home will be included right there too. So, I mean, what a time to be alive. So the posters will go up. The posters will have contact numbers. So you can contact the organizers for more detail. And like I said, it's on. This is going to spread like wildfire, and the unity they don't want us to have is actually going to be a reality in our lifetime. Can you believe it? In our lifetime. So I see we are 63 people. I'm literally just waiting for Mkhulu to show. I think I see that he's here, and then we can proceed with the topic today. And today we're going to talk about the history across the globe of townships, of ghettos or projects, of slums, because this is a very essential conversation to have in order to understand issues of land and how land was taken from bakwaNtu. Thokozeni.
Thokoza Ndlovukazi.
Mkhulu ninjani? Thokoza Khehla.
Hotep.
Yes, Mkhulu, can you hear me well?
Yes. Oh, Sido. Hey, yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm going to put my headphones on in case I run in here screaming and shouting. So let's do this. Can you still hear me, Mkhulu?
Yes. Yes, I can hear.
Okay, perfect. Mkhulu. Thokoza Mkhulu, welcome. Thank you once again for availing yourself to us and for sharing so much from your wealth of knowledge. We are all students here when you come up because there is so much that you impart to us, those of us who are at home, as well as those of us in the diaspora, in terms of understanding our condition as bakwaNtu globally, and also understanding how these conditions were created. So today, Mkhulu, I just want to start with talking a little bit about the issue of townships, or as you like to call them, concentration camps, and how these came into existence. Thokoza.
Thokoza Ndlovukazi. Angazi noma you want to magnify the screen?
I did.
Oh, sure. Ndlovukazi, you know, this was a calculated move, right? By the colonizer, not only in South Africa, but all over the world. These ghettos or concentration camps, we call townships, were just, cheap labor dormitories because most of them are next to the cities, right? So the colonizer will make us build the city, but we are not allowed to live in the city. So that is why they then, moved us from where we enjoyed land in abundance, our places. They moved us to the city. Remember that before we were colonized, I didn't have to buy food. I didn't have to buy anything. The land, was the source of my sustenance. Now, the colonizer comes, take the land, and forces people, to move to the cities. And the cities were firstly created here in South Africa through mining, right? These are mining towns. This is how they started. Like Joburg. They were mining gold ever since.
Mkhulu, you muted yourself. Mkhulu, we can't hear you. Mkhulu, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. You are muted. Unmute. Unmute yourself.
Hear me, Joe. You can't hear me.
You muted somehow. You were muted, so we missed a whole chunk. I was trying to. And if you mute yourself on my end, even though I'm the host, I can't unmute you.
No,
now,
it must have happened. No, a call came through.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's why I always put on do not disturb, because it will mute you.
It's on do not disturb. I don't understand how it came in.
Okay, let's carry on then. So Mkhulu, where we last heard you is you were saying that so these townships or concentration camps, he's muted again. Okay, you muted once again. So we last heard you saying that these townships or concentration camps were created on the periphery of cities that then the people who lived in these places were actually building but not allowed to live in. You then went on to say that most of the big cities were created around mining, for example, Johannesburg. That's where we last ended.
Yes, Johannesburg, Dovgaz. So they then, forced people to move from rural areas where they own the land, to come to cities. Why? Because they had already taken the land from the people. Now, the land that they have to till and the cows that they have to look after is their cows.
Wow.
The people's cows, but now they belong to the colonizer, because here's a colonizer with a gun on my head. If I don't submit to his will, he kills me there and there. So people ended up submitting, to that, a demand from the colonizer, and many of them were forced to come to the city because of a promise of a better life. And yet, this is where, most of our people's lives were destroyed. Because, these are places, remember that not only did it provide cheap labor, but also social engineering, to slowly destroy what is called the prefrontal, cortex, the neocortex. Because it's a gradual process for you to be able, for them to be able to destroy your critical, thinking ability, so that you end up following How do they do that? They put us in these concentration camps, places that are not suitable for human settlement, right? We are squeezed together, right? And there's so much unruliness because nobody wants to take, submit to a certain law, because the moral code and standards that we left in rural areas became here, not important. In these places, everybody, is a king and a queen. So unruliness. So the degeneration of our moral standard, was fast-tracked by that movement from rural to, the cities. So the main objective there was to deal with the mindset. When a person is forever stressed, right, there can never be any critical thinking, because you are always thinking of your stomach. How am I going to survive? How am I going to get food? And that also destroyed the black family. That's the foundation of that destruction, because statistics say today the black family, as compared to other races in our country, is worse in terms of, family structure. Meaning that our families are destroyed. Why? Because they would leave, wives at home in rural areas, come to the city. Some of them will not go back. Some of them will find somebody else here and they marry. And they cut that umbilical cord that connects them, with the rural, places. So,
I just want to interject a little bit, because I think it's very important that we ground this really strongly. So one of the things that I know that happened, for example, in places like Zimbabwe, in places like Kenya, is that the whole creation of the township was very systematic. So in South Africa, I know Zimbabwe is the same. They created places that they called homelands. They created, in Zimbabwe, they are called, we call them mareserva, meaning reserves. In America, they call them reserves, reservations, where they took indigenous people and they put them in barren land that you cannot grow anything on. And by so doing and putting them, I know South Africa has 10 homelands. I can't remember how many Zimbabwe has, but and I know Kenya had these homelands where they were forced off their fertile lands into these barren places where you couldn't grow anything, where animals would die. And once people were there, this condition of poverty then forced them to migrate to the cities, because there was no sustenance. So so it was a way of breaking down the resistance that already existed in people to say, we'll fight you and stay here and keep our land. And so this movement and these creation of these homelands, which are horrible, horrible places, forced then the men in these places to say, we need to get out and go to Joburg and go to Cape Town and go to wherever it is, Bulawayo, Harare, go to Nairobi, in order to get work, only to get there, like you say, and find that what they had created initially in these places are hostels, because it was the men who were going. Hostels are like the projects here, which are these tenement high-rise flats where people are just like, men are put in there. It's almost like being in prison, really. And the only life you have while you're in there is to go to work and to come back, and to pacify you. They make sure that you are provided with alcohol. That then led to the creation of prostitution, which now the women left at home are saying, well, we need, these men are gone and they're not coming back. some of these women then followed. And these are the women who would then provide a service to these men in order to get something to either feed their own kids or whatever. And so what you're saying is about the degradation of our moral code was really started there, where now in the absence, because it was about survival, right? Who wants to stay by themselves? And these men were working hard jobs in these mines, and you have no one to cook for you, you have no one to clean for you. And putting a group of the same gender in one place is just a recipe for the most horrible type of toxicity. This is where now the rage of being emasculated and removed from being a provider for your family in your own land to being a slave where you don't get paid much. And then that rage spills out, but you can't spill it out on the person who enraged you, who has done you wrong. It starts to spill out on one another. So yeah, it's just it's really such a deep thing. And my interest in this too, especially in terms of construction of the township, is let's talk about the divisions that they created in these spaces too. For example, remember we visited a mining town where we found that the Xhosas lived together, the Basotho lived by themselves, the Batswana lived by themselves, the Venda, and so on. Let's talk a little bit about that and how that was intentional.
Before we go there, let's clarify the issue.
Guys, what happened to Mkhulu? Hello. Thokozeni, please be patient with us, guys. I have no idea what happened to Mkhulu. He just vanished. Seems like somebody does not want us to do this teaching today. I wonder what is going on. Silo, maybe you can go and help Mkhulu set up. I see you're here. Something happened. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, what Mkhulu was saying is there's a big difference between homelands and townships. So the homeland was sort of the first landing ground, and then people were then forced from the homelands. These are in the rural areas, just poor places in the rural areas. And then they were now forced because they couldn't live off the land. The land didn't produce anything. They were then forced to go to the cities where mining was happening and forced into the mines. Mkhulu, I think, is about this. Thokoza Mkhulu?
Yes, Ndlovukazi.
You are not picturing.
Don't worry. Asiphelile umoya.
No, I know, right? Today is weird.
Keep the spirits.
I'm like, what? What is going on? We can't see your picture, Mkhulu. There we go.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So now the issue of the homelands, it was crafted by the Afrikaners, right? Verwoerd. They called it separate development, right? And this is where, these are some of people who sold us out, right? We are busy engaging the enemy militarily, right? And through any other means, in our communities. Then some of the kings, princes, who were then closer to the Afrikaners, when the Afrikaners decided to introduce the concept of separate development, they then accepted that Xhosas will develop on their own. There was a Mangope there, then, in Venda as well, some of people, So all these, we call them homeland leaders, you know, people who saw the struggle during the worst days, you know, of the colonizer, when he was inflicting the worst pain. So some of them, you know, but, you know, when you look back, as an example, in Mthatha, right, in the Eastern Cape, as much as it was terrible, the action by uMatanzima to accept a homeland system, but you look at what he did after, right? Matanzima made sure that he took over the economy, right? And made sure that the people who own businesses in town, Mthatha, were black people. You know, they would be white, but you know, there are sectors of the economy that he made sure that these sectors, you know, they are going to be owned by black people. You look at the case of uMangope, same thing with uMatanzima, you know, but look at the development that Mangope did. You know, the country.
But that was like, you know what, Ketla, that was just like, and I hear you, and I understand that, but it really was just making the best of a bad situation, right?
No, certainly no. These people, you know, it was outright selling out.
Yeah.
And we all knew.
Yeah.
But what they did after, like Mangope, nobody in the new South Africa has reached the level of development of black people in their own area. You know, and nobody matches Mangope. You see, so that's why most of the time it's about political will. What are you willing to do for your own people instead of the lies that we've been fed all this time? So now the homeland and the township. So that strategy worked, you know, Inkatha, Freedom Party was part of that. Mangosuthu Buthelezi was running KwaZulu-Natal. You know, so this is the separation now, divide and rule, you know, so that we are able to deal with them when they are disunited, you know, disjointed. Yes.
But
that
you see,
was their problem.
Yes, and they perpetuate that, like I said, even currently in how the mining system is set up. Why is there a section where Xhosas live, a section where Basotho live, a section? Because, again, this is a demonstration that they are always looking for opportunities to disunite us. And this has been going on for centuries now. So if it's not, it's going to be, for us, it's ethnic lines. You are Xhosa, I'm Zulu, you are Karanga, you are Venda, you are this, and you are that. And I want us, as we're listening to Mkhulu, to really understand why the issue of Black unity becomes important. Because this story of how the palm-colored creatures, the colonizer, has been able to sustain power for so long is primarily because we are so disunited. So if you flip it the other way and we are united, it automatically means that there will be this shift of power back to us in our own lands the way they should be. Now, Mkhulu, I want us to ask, let's talk a little.
Let me finish the township story.
No, we're still going on.
Dealing with the homelands.
Okay.
You asked the question, why the division in townships? It's exactly implementing that macro strategy now in these, you know, concentration camps. Where you find there's a Zulu section, there's a Venda section, there's a, you know, all this, but that didn't make a dent, you know, because, you know, as an example, people in Soweto were forever united. There's never been a war between Vendas and Sothos. We just live together. So there they failed, you know, because the consciousness was very high. So this is what happened, just to maintain, you know, that control and power over people.
Ketla, Ketla, we talked a little bit about the conditions in these townships and concentration camps. And one of the things that becomes clear to me is that the hallmarks of all these places are the same globally, right? So you have poor sewage systems that are not well constructed because they were never constructed to ensure health. They were constructed to ensure that their slaves or their workers would be able to be okay enough to go to work. So it was never about health and wellness or health and well-being. Poor water services and water systems either. I know that in some places they actually use what they call reclaimed water, which is sewage water kind of sanitized somehow as for people to drink and wash in. And so in some of these areas, you find kids break out in rashes. There's endless skin conditions. There's endless diarrheal problems in certain places. Because once again, it was never constructed for the health and wellness of the Black nation or Black people. We had here in the US a water crisis a few years ago in Michigan in a place called Flint, where the water was contaminated because of, and Flint, by the way, just for you to understand, is a working town and it's 96% Blacks. And so there, again, just to show that the system broke, there was contamination of the water, and people were sick. People are still sick in Flint today because that water system till today has not been fixed properly. So I want to highlight for you that the plight of the Black nation is a universal plight all over the world. And these townships or concentration camps they may be called different names in different places, but the hallmarks of these places are still the same. There's overcrowding, right? It's like a place that's created to take in the most amount of people, but in the smallest area possible. So the conditions that are created with that is that you don't see much in terms of nature. It's a concrete jungle in these spaces. There are hardly any trees. Nobody maintains any so-called parks for the children. It's a global phenomenon. And flood risk, there are lots of places that flood when it's the rainy season. And there is no government assistance even put aside to deal with those kind of flood situations. Hence, a lot of people get sick, a lot of people die, a lot of people lose their homes and have to rebuild from scratch anytime that there is flooding. Why is there flooding? Because the drainage systems, again, were not created and haven't been maintained because really nobody cares about the people who are in these townships or ghettos or concentration camps. Education is also very poor in these spaces. Infrastructure is not maintained. In some places, kids have no books. In some places, they take in people who are not even trained to be teachers. Nobody cares. Windows are broken, door panes are broken. So, and then of course is that innate violence that comes from this rage that is so primordial because it's almost like it's a centuries old rage that we've carried in us for so long because of this colonization and slavery. So Mkhulu, how critical then becomes the land issue in terms of the well-being of the Black nation? What I want us to talk about is, we've talked about these townships, how they were created, what a mess they are. How is the land important from a spiritual perspective? I know land is important for you to be able to grow your own food, have your own home, have space, be close to nature. But from a spiritual perspective, what are the components that are required? And why is land so critical that makes us so disconnected to who we are?
Oh, okay. Let me just comment briefly about the psychological effect of townships. you know, because we see black people all over internationally. Their behavior is the same.
Yeah.
You know, these places that they have put us in, they made us to lose that sense of pride, you know, and lowers your self-esteem, you know, to a point that you no longer believe in yourself, you know. Even you know, we can't even. That's why I'm saying it's psychological, because it has frozen our thinking ability. You know, to
Thokoza.
the point that all of us in these you know, places in the US, you have Koreans that are trading in our communities.
Thokoza. Chinese.
In South Africa, yes, and Chinese and whatever, you know, other people. And here in South Africa and all over the continent, there's this emergence of, you know, these guys that Pakistanis. They're all over the continent and taking
Yes.
each and every, you know, and there's no reaction from us,
Yeah.
you know. Then you wonder, that's why I'm saying it has a psychological effect on all of us, you know, to start with self-hate, you know, the condition that you live under has made it, you know, for you to lessen the value.
Yeah.
It's like you have no value, you know, you have no sense of importance, because you are surrounded by all these things that are keeping you forever, you know, stressed. You wake up in the morning, there's a drainage, you know, just running down your door. You know, immediately it stresses you before you even leave the house, you know. So we are forever stressed. That's why even our reaction is the same. You know, the things that people do in Jamaica and the things that they do in Zola, yeah, almost the same.
It's exactly the same.
Hey, people that you know, live in New York, there, you know, in the projects there, they behave exactly the same. Like you know, besides that, we share a common vibrational frequency part. We have been affected the same.
Thokoza.
So that's why our healing is going to require this collectiveness, you know, our unity, so that we are able to deal with this psychological effect, you know, as a collective, you know, so that we start, you know, restarting that self-love again, you know,
Thokoza.
and that will not just come. You know, it's a process, it's a gradual process for us to be able to be told, because the only thing that makes our people so feel inferior, they have this inferiority complex,
Thokoza.
right? It's because of the ignorance of who they are, where they come from. You know, before these adverse conditions were introduced in their lives, you know, who were they? Who were their ancestors? Once you find that truth, you get liberated. So that's why the education and the content, you know, there's so much that we learn from the US. People who are there who are teaching us. And there's going to be a two-way, you know, a flow of, you know, knowledge and information, so that we are able to have this collective part, you know, that we all rely on in terms of, you know, healing our psyche as well as our emotions, you know, because we can never move forward, you know, without, with this abnormality, you know, in our mind. Hey, it's very abnormal. We are all sick as black people.
I'm sorry.
You know, we need that healing of guys. We've got to admit it. Our people, we are not okay.
No, we're not.
So that healing is going to require a lot of education from all of us who are enlightened about certain aspects of our history. Because history is going to put us at a certain level that we will never, fit, to be a slave again. Because a person that is conscious of themselves is not fit to be a slave.
Thokoza.
Thokoza.
No, Kehla, the reason I laugh is because we've had these conversations before, you and I, and, the examples of our common illness are very prevalent, especially on the social media platforms, where you look at someone doing something and you see that the tag says Jamaica, and then you look at the same behavior on a tag that says Kenya, on a tag that says South Africa, on a tag that... And it's fascinating to be sometimes on the socials and not do anything but make these observations. And Umoya directs, suddenly you find these things coming in your feeds as though Umoya says, Spirit is saying, just take a look at... Because the behaviors, like you say, they're not normal behaviors. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, this isn't even age appropriate behavior. We're looking at grown men and adult women who have children and grandchildren acting in the most bizarre ways. And you ask yourself, what has happened? But it is that collective malaise or dis-ease that is in us, because this colonization and this slavery, we've been treated worse than animals.
That's true.
We've been treated worse than animals. They treat their animals better than they've treated us. And this has gone on generation after generation after generation until we are where we are today. And so I'm just grateful that we are at a point now where we are, some of us, awake enough to see the damage and to be able to know how this can be remedied. I think that is very important. It's one thing to see a condition and then be at a loss as to what to do with that condition.
That's true. It goes back to your point, about the land issue. There's a huge need for us to be moved from these whole areas, right?
These townships and concentration camps, yeah.
Yes. Remember that we've read a lot of stories there in the US that after the Civil War, people were promised the land and the
40 acres and a mule, yes.
That's it. What happened to that? It's dead, I know. But what is important is that through acquiring knowledge, you then discover that America is owned by black people. It belongs to black people. When you go back to history, right? White people came there as invaders, all of them. There's no white person, even the Indians, who are claiming to be Indians and, indigenous, people of that country. I believe they were in cahoots with white people to deceive black people of their land. So the struggle for the return of the land, it should reverberate all over the world, because we once owned the whole world, because we are first citizens, So it has got to be a movement like a GK, where we are making strides moving forward towards that total liberation. So therefore, even black people in America, Jamaica, wherever, we need to unite to actually deal with the system, because the system that is subduing black people in America is the same system here. It's the same system all over the world. So our war that we've waged here in South Africa and Africa to fight the system, because the system is illegal, right? It should never have been implemented on the continent. So Now, when we approach and take that approach, it is time that black people claim the whole world because it belongs to us. They are black Indians, they are black Japanese, they are black Australians, you know? Why? Because it traces back. You know, wherever, you know, when you trace back, you always find blackness. So it is that ignorance, you know, that they imposed and instilled in us that we are from a dark continent. So therefore, you know nothing. And yet they are hiding the truth that they came to invade our... Remember that America before? Our ancestors called it Tameri, the beloved land. A connection with Kemet is the same thing. So we need to rise up, you know, learn about this, but don't just learn and keep it intellectual, you know, exercise. We need to move forward with a program of reclaiming our land all over the world.
Mkhulu, just to interrupt you there and share a little bit with you, one of the ways I found out actually that the indigenous people of America were black is because there is one of these quote unquote Indian tribes. There's a woman chief who's been selected to lead. And it was phenomenal. I was shocked that day. And she gave a speech in which she said, as I take over, we have to admit the truth. We do not own any of this land that we claim to own. The indigenous people own this land. I think she shocked everybody because she produced documents that they had signed with white people to say, you take this and claim that it is yours. I think because we're in this age of Ma'at, this age of truth and justice and order, the truth had to come out. It was phenomenal to hear her actually say it with her own mouth. And, you know, she is one of the ones, you know, with that, the hair and the olive skin. So, but she said it. She said, we're not the indigenous people of this land. The indigenous people of this land were black. Yeah, and what supports that too, Mkhulu, is that artifacts have been found, like in the Grand Canyon, artifacts have been found that are Kemetic in nature. The symbols are Kemetic, the everything about them. When you look at them, you'll say, no, this is from ancient Kemet.
It's Kemet and nothing else.
Yeah, and also recently there was a mummy that was found. It's right here, I think, in Ohio. Somebody was digging up somewhere, and they unearthed a mummy and buried in Kemetic style, same shape, same everything. So the truth, I always say to myself, where was this thing all along? And remember, we've had this conversation where in the age we're in, there may have been some things that spirit suppressed until the right time, so that these things now surface and they're being found, so that there is no doubt about what the truth is. Mkhulu,
I believe that, guys, when you are at the Grand Canyon, that place, it leads you to direct Africa.
It does?
It does. When you are there, you can move directly to Africa. So that's how people are settled there. African people, black people, were the first to occupy that place.
That nobody questions that anymore. It's there.
No. But now we need a program of action. You know,
they've started.
By black people from there.
They have started. A lot of them have started. A lot of them have started. I think one of the things I've found is that they want nothing to do with Africa. the ones that I've heard speak have
Also,
said
those crazy ones.
exactly. They have literally,
No.
and I think part of it is that they have the sense and will say we were never brought on slave ships. We understand that. We know this already. So how do you then say we are not Africans or we want nothing to do with Africa? Because
No.
when
That debate, guys, we need to forget about it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that is ignorance talking.
yeah,
You know, we need to forget and not even give them attention.
yeah.
But there are a lot of black people in the US. You know, who can initiate this thing. You know, separate from all these people who are saying all these things.
Yeah,
So it can't be led by them only.
yeah, yeah,
You know, because everybody's black. Even I, as an African person here, born here, I have a claim in that place.
Come.
Hey, my blackness qualifies me, you know? So it will be easy for us to come and join the movement there when they are pushing for this, return of the land. Because that is the land of black people, which must be claimed all over the world.
Towards.
Hey, it's about time because it's time for change.
Towards.
Hey. So that revolution has got to be, it has to start with the land.
Every revolution starts with the land.
It has to start because we are in slavery currently. Even all of us in Africa. Africans don't own the land. It's only few places like Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and few that did things differently, right? But the rest of us, the land is still owned by white people, which is why Africa is crying out. You know, Africa is being stifled, by the decisions of their leaders, who don't seem to understand that Africans need total liberation. They need to be in control of their land. They need to be in control of their resources. You know, this time of lying to people, it's over. You are the best president on the call. What nonsense is that? You can't be a best president because the only thing that you are a manager, of the colonizers' assets. That's all you are. So you come in and lie to us after 5 years. I don't know, know that we are pushing for you. You know, you come up with all these struggle, quotations to lull us. Yeah. We don't want this system. This system all over the world must fall so that the black people are free and their land is returned. So those that are still pursuing that route here on the African continent, my art is going to deal with them. It's time for change. You know, we must stop lying to people and say they're quoting all very, big words. Democratic centralism. What is that? It's because, they're quoting all these things. Some of them, they don't even understand. If you were to ask a black person who's talking that nonsense, what is democratic centralism? Huh? They won't answer you. They learn all these things from the colonizer. So they are good parrots, Hey, we don't want to hear all those quotes and, all the lies. We want our land back and the return of our governing system, which is African royalty, even there in the US,
You know why I'm laughing? I just remembered one of these members of parliament who was reading something and she could not say conscientiously. And she says, conscience. And then she's like, nazoge. She couldn't, even when they tried to help her to say it. So you are correct. A lot of these people are parrots who don't even know the words that they are using and what they mean. Yo, I'm Mkhulu. We are out of time.
I still have the energy, man. Why? Thanks, guys.
No, thank you so much for coming, you know.
Thank you, guys.
It's been wonderful. Having you is always a treat. I think everybody enjoys these conversations as much as I do. Royals, thank you for showing up once again. Please be on the lookout. Like I said, America is having their inaugural African Kemet New Year celebration.
Yes.
So the posters are going to be out ASAP. Get in touch with the numbers that are there so that you can get details. But get yourself down there. And let's demonstrate this Black unity. This is the first ever. One of the Ndlovukazi, the queens I work with, said something that brought tears to my eyes when she said, "Who would have thought Africans have a new year? We have our own new year like everybody else." That just for me was everything. So Mkhulu, I also again just want to say thank you.
Before you close, I would like to, say big up to Ndlovukazi, the queens that have, initiated the process, including yourself. Because this is something that failed all African presidents, all of them. They've been, this African unity has been elusive ever since Nkrumah spoke about it. And there it is now. We can see that this is a practical way of uniting, African people. So we truly, because from the US and the other, we must hear it in Jamaica. Them joining in the UK, everywhere. When it comes to our new year here on the continent, all of us are kneeling at the same time. This is power, Ndlovukazi. You guys continue, making your ancestors, proud of you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Royals, thank you for joining us. We will see you on the next one because there will be a next one, right, Mkhulu?
Oh, no, definitely. It can be every day.
Bye, everyone. Bye.